Hey guys, Tarke here, and I wanted to do a quick breakdown for the new build that I'm currently playing. We are testing out Fire Nova Mines. The reason why we're testing it out now is I'm trying to pick a build for my league starter for next league. Obviously, it's kind of hard to pick what you want to play when we haven't got the patch notes yet. All we know is there might be a big nerf to double dipping, so I'm trying to avoid mechanics with double dipping. I will most likely end up playing the Trap Saboteur if this ends up not going the way I want it to, because that looks incredibly promising. That being said, however, I do want to give a breakdown on this character, and I was pretty interested to do this character because there are a few things that I'm doing differently in this build than I've seen with other Fire Nova Mines, and I actually revisit ideas that I tried out in my first ever build in Ascendancy. So let's quickly cover previous trees that I've seen which have worked well for Fire Nova Mines, what I like, dislike about them, the strengths and weaknesses of the skill itself, and then the tree that I've ultimately gone with. So when it first came to trying to find a good Fire Nova Mine tree, the realistic choices, which weren't based around, crazy shenanigans with poison, double dipping, and all this stuff which we think might get nerfed, was Pox. Pox actually made a pretty good budget starter tree for Fire Nova Mines for the start of Essence, and this was kind of his base. The way that he did it was he was a Saboteur, he got a bunch of juicy mind stuff, he got Eldritch Battery, he did the whole Mind Over Matter thing, he also had Zealot's Oath, and yeah, basic sort of Eldritch Battery. Now, after playing my last character, I found that Eldritch Battery, it's a playstyle that I'm not actually too fond of. The reason why I'm not a massive fan of Eldritch Battery is it's one of those things of you're reliant on a Stone Golem. The Stone Golem, even if you invest into them being very tanky, in my last build it was a Necromancer, and it still sometimes got one shot. If you don't notice instantly, you can actually get yourself killed very easily in hardcore, which isn't something I'm a massive fan of. Also, to make the whole thing work, you need to use Zealot's Oath, meaning you sacrifice all life regen. Sacrificing all life regen in a build where you don't have Leech is very awkward, and I'm just personally not a massive fan of it. So that's one big thing off the bat. So when it came to making my own version of this, I knew that I didn't want to do Eldritch Battery, so my options were either do CI shenanigans or do a life-based version which didn't use Eldritch Battery to sustain mana. Now, obviously for CI, the most obvious option is Occultist Consuming Dark, but as previously mentioned, I'm avoiding that because I don't know what state it'll be in for next patch. If it doesn't get touched and I decide to play Consuming Dark next patch, it will most likely be as an Occultist version, but this is kind of what I've come up with. So, building around Weave the Arcane is my solution to the mana woes. Now, before we get into it, I know there is an essence, I believe it's Essence of Insanity, which does a very similar thing to Weave the Arcane. The essence gives 10% chance to recover 10% of maximum mana when you use a skill, and that's if you craft it onto an amulet. The reason why I'm choosing to ignore that essence is this is something I'm planning for a league starter, and I don't know how much access I'm going to have to an essence at the very start. I don't know if someone like Mathil or Ziggy is going to decide to make a build using it. It's very unlikely, but it's one of those things of if that essence becomes unobtainable, then it kind of shuts down my build idea, which isn't what you want at the start of a league. At the start of the league, you want something which requires nothing to get going. So that's why I'm going around Trickster. Now, the first build that I ever planned in Ascendancy was a Trickster Mind Over Matter Chaos Incinerate character. It wasn't a very good character. It worked. It was very budget. It did what I needed it to do, and I actually had a lot of fun with it. But it was an idea that I haven't really seen explored since then, either through myself or through other people. And I thought, you know what, this is a really good idea and place to go back to Weave the Arcane. It makes natural sense with the ridiculous mana cost of Fire Nova Mines. To give you an idea of just how ridiculous the mana cost is, the base mana cost at level 20 goes up to 36. To give you some contrast, that explosive arrow is 27. So very, very expensive. In-game right now, with just a level 6 Fire Nova Mine on a 4-link, it already costs 40, and that is using 2 pieces of Elrion jewelry. So yeah, the mana cost on Fire Nova is real. A lot of people end up having to do awkward things with mana potions and this and another. We do not want to use mana flasks, no. Basically, by taking this one node, by planning out the way that I'm planning it, this will be enough to sustain. The chance to proc will proc whenever we use a movement skill, whenever we lay a mine, and whenever we detonate a mine. Okay, so that makes sense. What else do we get from our ascendancy? We also get Walk the Aether. Walk the Aether gives us movement skills cost no mana, just quality of life. 20% increased attack and cast speed if you've used a movement skill recently. Fire Nova Mine is one of the few mine skills which scale with cast speed. Basically, the more cast speed you have, the quicker the pulses are. on the skill if you don't know. The way that Fire Over Mine works is you drop a mine and then it pulses out a series of times. If you have the enchant, it pulses out for more. Every repeated blast does additional damage. See those additional things here? So if you have more cast speed, the faster they pulse out. I run Minefield, so you would drop 3 instead of 1, but that's just a side thing. Okay, so what else do we get? All the mini nodes give us attack and cast speed, which is very good. Attack speed makes our whirling blades or shield charge better. I'm not entirely sure on what weapon setup I want to use yet, so right now I'm just picking between the two. Cast speed, as already mentioned, makes it better. Evasion rating is just good. Energy shield is just good. The energy shield is the weak point because, as I've said, I'm not using Eldritch Battery stuff, and I actually go acrobatic. So you go, hang on, Tarke, what are you doing? Now, again, I'm revisiting the ideas from my first ever Ascendancy build, and it was an interesting idea, and I just want to see how good it is. I'm not saying this is, like, amazing. We'll see over the coming days. So basically, the way that I'm using my energy shield is purely as a way to trigger other effects. That's it. We have no investment into energy shield. We're not running energy shield gear. We're just doing like evasion gear, and that's it. We're not focusing on stacking a bunch of ES. So, Ghost Stance gives us faster start of energy shield recharge, chance to dodge attacks, chance to dodge spell damage, increased movement speed while on full energy shield. Basically, if we haven't been hit recently, we move faster. Cool. Attack, cast speed, evasion, energy shield, jink. And then Shade Form gives flat evasion, flat ES, increased attack and cast speed, defense shield, recharge started recently, 20% more chance of bait attacks while not on full energy shield. So basically, we have a bunch of evasion, we have a bunch of energy shield. If we've been hit, our energy shield goes down. Because we're an evasion-based character, they'll then start recharging. While it's recharging, we get a nice little mini steroid of attack and cast speed. Pretty straightforward. And if we've taken a hit, which means we won't be at full energy shield, we get 20% more chance to evade attack. So we get like a mini Kintsugi effect built into the core kit. Now, the one thing that I am going to say off the bat, by focusing on trying to get as much evasion as possible, we might need to run some hybrid evasion energy shield pieces early on, just because colors can be a little bit awkward. If we're running a bunch of blues in a pure evasion chest, then yeah, that's not the best thing. That is kind of like the weakness of this build, and might be why using a staff or a bow might be a good idea, or revisiting the idea. But for now, I'm just trying to avoid doing Eldritch Battery stuff, okay? Okay. So, what's the tree? There are a few different ways of doing the tree. As you can see, I've come down to get Acro. Since we came down to get Acro, it's 1 point to then get like 4 or 5% life nodes. We'll get some increased life recovery. It's pretty decent in a build which can't leech. The increased fast recovery speed is decent. Nothing that spectacular. If we decide to drop the Acro route, then we have a lot of points to play with, but for now this kind of limits our routes on the tree a little bit. We choose not to get melding just because it gives sod all life, and currently we're not planning to focus on energy shield. If I decide to take more of a hybrid approach, having like a decent actual energy shield on top of my life, on top of my mind over matter, then obviously we'd pick up melding, but for now I'm just assuming that that won't be a focus. This is all very much subject to change. Jewels, life, generic stuff. Mind over matter, because we're going to try and have as much unreserved mana as possible. I'll either just run Grace or Arctic Armor, or just have everything unreserved and run maybe a clear mind jewel. Something I need to test if it's worthwhile or not. Work in progress. Ele Overload. This is just a thing that on tanky rares and bosses, I will drop down on Orb of Storms. Orb of Storms is how I'm planning on casting, and I'm planning on running pure offensive curses. So it'll be Orb of Storms, Curse on hit, then Flammability and either Ele Weakness or Enfeeble, depending on what I feel like I want more. So when I need the extra damage, I drop down this double offensive Curse on hit setup, which also gives me Ele Overload. Just gives me a lot of damage when needed. Otherwise, it's just a case of drop the mine, detonate the mine, movement speed, drop the mine, detonate the mine. That's it. Bunch of AoE, bunch of AoE. The important mine stuff to note is Clever Construction and Volatile Mines. Everything else is just damage. Clever Construction allows our mines to be immune for 5 seconds, so you drop it, they can't be damaged for 5 seconds. This is important because they can actually be killed before you set them off, which is very frustrating. And Volatile Mines just makes detonating the mines instant, and it gives us some damage and some AoE, so it just smooths it out. So if you were intentional with this character, you would come through this way, pick up Blood Siphon, boom, rush through, hit Clever Construction, then you'd rush through, hit Volatile Mines. If we keep Acro, you then come down, grab Acro, fill in a little bit of life, and then just travel through, picking up the AoE, come down, pick Ellie Overload, and it's a pretty self-explanatory tree. There's nothing that fancy to it. The life total is pretty decent considering the amount of jewels we have. This is 4 jewels with access to 2 more. This is also doing Oak Kill, so we have 2 additional skill points just from Bandits. So if you want to level 93, you could very easily, get up to 5 jewels. This is also with a bunch of Acro. This is also with Mind Over Matter. This is with potential for a decent hybrid base if you decide to go into it. So defensively, the build is fairly well-rounded, and you can also run defensive curses if you need to. I'm going to use the Doedri's Damning for my second curse rather than getting Whispers of Doom in the tree for 6 points, because if you're going to get Whispers of Doom, you'd get the curse effect. And currently the way that I'm doing it, since we're not getting Heart of Flame, it's kind of awkward to justify coming along this top path. You could, however, come up the top path, pick up Heart of Flame, and pick up Whispers of Doom. One other important thing to note is Katava's Thirst. Now, I'm not sure if I want to use this item or not because it has the reduced cast speed. If that wasn't there, I would be using it without a doubt. Having that reduced cast speed on there is a little bit off-putting because that is bad for our Fire Nova Mines. That being said, we get something like 56% attack and cast speed just from being a Trickster, so it's not like we're struggling for cast speed. The reason why this is tempting is you have this little bit here. Our Fire Nova Mines will definitely cost over 100 mana without a question, and whenever we drop to mine with this helmet, we'd have a 30% chance to cast socketed spells when you spend at least 100 mana to use a skill. So what you could do is you could have your curses in your helm, and you could do something like whichever 2 curses you decide to run, and then Molten Shell if you wanted to. You could have utility skills in there. You could run stuff like Orb of Storms, Vortex, just to trigger the Elemental Overload, give it a nice layer of defense. Another thing while we're just talking about Vortex, if I feel like the AoE on Vortex isn't limiting enough, because it has got a smaller base AoE than Orb of Storms, I will use Vortex to cast on hit, just because it gives the nice chilled ground, which is kind of good defense for bosses, and that's the main case we're going to be using it. But otherwise, it's basically kind of that. So this is just a basic update. One other thing I will quickly mention, we have set up a Patreon, and thank you very much to people who are supporting me so far. Don't worry about it, but if you do want to help the channel, this is a way to help. Also, there are memes. I'm Tarke, this is a cat, have a good day, bye-bye.